are starting with the prayer.
भेद भाव अपने दिल से साफ कर सके, दोस्तों से भूल हो तो माफ कर सके, झूठ से बचे रहे, सच कदम भरे, दूसरों के जैसे पहले खुद को जय करे, हमको मन की शक्ति देना, मुश्किलें पड़े तो हम पर इतना कर्म कर, साथ दे तो धर्म का, चले तो धर्म पर, खुद पे हौसला रहे, बदी से ना डरे, दूसरों के जैसे पहले खुद को जय करे, हमको मन की शक्ति देना।
Good morning. Giving tribute to our great master Samuel Hahnemann, who made this divine science for all of us and taught us dare to be wise. Seeking blessings from our Guru Dr. Prafull Vijayakar sir, who bridges the modern science with the homeopathy and made homeopathy easy like mathematics. Jai Hanuman, Jai Homeopathy, Om Vijaykaraya Namah. So up till now we have as far as completed the one book Theory of Suppression, and from yesterday onwards we have started another book Homeopathy and Modern Science. And with this Homeopathy and Modern Science we are also reading the Organon of Medicines. So up till now we have covered 21 aphorisms. So today with the blessings of Master Hahnemann, and we are reading the books from the Organon 6 editions. Aphorism number 22. But as nothing is observed in the disease that must be removed in order to change them into health beside the totality of their sign and symptom, and likewise medicine can show nothing curative beside their tendency to produce morbid symptoms in the healthy person and to remove them in a diseased person. So this is what we are learning. First we learn about the health, then disease, and then the power of medicines. Okay. It follows on the one hand that medicines only become remedies and capable of annihilating disease because the medicinal substance by exciting certain effect and the symptoms, that is to say by producing a certain artificial morbid state. Medicine remove and abrogate the symptoms already present, to wit, the natural morbid state we wish to cure. On the other hand, it follows that for totality of symptoms of the disease to be cured, a medicine must be sought which, according to as experience shall prove whether the morbid symptoms are most readily, certainly, and permanently removed and changed into health by similar or opposite medicinal symptoms. Prove to have the greatest tendency to produce similar or opposite symptoms. So here two things what Master Hahnemann is telling that if it is a similar action, then it is called as homeopathy, and if it is a opposite action, then it is called as allopathy. So in allopathy, we all have the remedy like antipyretic, anti-analgesic, antibiotic. These are the anti-remedy. Whereas in homeopathy, we have the medicine which have a power to produce in healthy human being as approving, and the same symptom and morbid phenomena is to be removed when it is present in the disease. So this is what the law of similia similibus curanter. So what footnote number 12 says, the other possible mode of employing medicines from the disease beside these two is allopathic methods in which the medicines are given whose symptoms have no direct pathological relation to the morbid state, neither similar nor opposite, but quite heterogeneous to the symptoms of the disease. This procedure plays, as I have shown elsewhere, an irresponsible, murderous game with the life of the patient by means of dangerous, violent medicines whose action is unknown and which are chosen on mere conjecture and given in a large and frequent doses. We all have experience in the era of the COVID when the COVID started, that the initially it was thought that COVID is because of virus, and then they started that first we have to treat this virus with the quinolone group of remedies or quinine. So they started HCQS. Then they said that HCQS is not working. Then we have to adapt another modes of treatment. So they started a viral remedy that Fabiflu. Then they started that Fabiflu is not working. Then they another story they made that it is remdesivir has been applied, and then so is this something that is no neither similar nor opposite but quite heterogeneous, and this is the procedure which makes the patient in a condition of dangerous and violence. Okay, and also the remedy is given in a large frequent doses. Again, by means of painful operations intended to lead the disease to the other regions and taking the stand and vital uses of the patient through the evacuations above and below, sweat or salivation, but especially through the squandering and irreplaceable blood, as is done by the reigning routine practice used blindly and relentlessly, usually with the pretext that the physician should imitate and further the sick nature in its effort to help itself, without considering how irrational it is. Physician to imitate and further this very imperfect, mostly inappropriate effort of the instinctive intelligence, vital energy, which is implanted in our organism so long as it is healthy to carry on life in a harmonious development, but not to heal itself in a disease. So this is what very important aspect of Master Hahnemann is criticizing the method of heteropathy, which is used at the time of Hahnemann, that it is very dangerous and violent and make the person sick by just imitating physicians that we are doing the right things. For were it possessed of which such a model ability, it would never have allowed the organism to get sick. When made ill by a noxious agent, our life principle cannot do anything else than express its depressions caused by the disturbances of the regularity of its life. This is called as disturbed harmonious operations or homeostasis, and expressing by means of symptoms by means of which the intelligent physician is asked for aid. So we have the morbid sign and symptoms and the patient is asking for the aid. If this is not given, it tries to save by increasing the ailment. If aid is not given, the ailment is gradually increasing, especially through the violent evacuations, no matter what it is entail. Often with the largest sacrifices or destruction of life itself. So whenever the aid is not given, the organism try to overcome by changing the gear, changing the modes. Okay, so finally land up with the sacrifices at the level of cellular level or life and finally end into destruction. For the purpose of cure, for the purpose of cure, the morbidly deranged or depressed vital energy possesses so little ability worthy if imitation since all changes and symptoms produced by it in an organism are disease itself. What intelligent physician would want to imitate it with the intention to heal if he did not thereby sacrifice his patient? So this is what very important. Again, it is a criticism, and we have to understand the man as a whole. So hope you got the master is telling us and conveying us the idea that we have to understand. Now we are reading the book on the modern science and homeopathy by Prafull Vijayakar, sir. So yesterday we have learned a few concepts of homeopathy with the correlation with the modern science. So we are further read that from the point 5. So yesterday we have learned 4 points of this chapter 1. So the fifth point, the concept of holistic concept and approval. So what homeopathy said that homeopathy maintains that the man should be considered as a whole, as it is the whole organism that affected, not a part, as given in theory of chronic disease and aphorism number 6 and 7 and the portrait of the disease. So this is what our understanding. We need to treat the man in disease, not the disease in man. What modern medicine says that the great anatomy is distressed by the separation and division of the body into different fields, which it mentions as the compartmentalizations of the different branches of medicine. To exactly quote Gray's Anatomy text, it says that unfortunately, and perhaps particularly in a medical sphere, the compartmentalizations of anatomy into several disciplines or a subject with attendant title, individual chair, and even separated department tend toward disintegration. So this is what very important aspect of for a mere understanding they are made a compartmentalizations or departments. So this is what they consider. This is tend toward disintegration. So when we consider the main as a whole, it is the integrations. But when we consider the part, it is called the disintegrations. So this is the Gray's Anatomy says about that. Again, as we know that the sixth concept that homeopathy believe that the generals are more important than the particulars. So what general pathology book says that in disease, the organism as a whole react to the disturbances or the injury. The same thing also written in aphorism number 189 that no Fallon or Whitlow happen without the simultaneous cooperation of the whole or a rest of the whole. So that is what same thing which is written in the pathology book. The in the disease, the organism as a whole to react the disturbances or the injury. The abnormality produced in the structure and functions of the cells during the course of the reactions can occur in any tissue or organ of the body, but have an essentially similar pattern in a different tissues. Further different causes can produce more or less the same effect through the mechanism of the productions may not be identical. Such changes are described as a basic or fundamental and they are the common denominators of the disease state. General pathology deals with the basic abnormality in the cell and the tissue and the reactions of the body as a whole in disease and explain their causations, mechanism of their productions and their nature. So we all know that what general pathology is. Every disease starts with the trauma. When the cell injury happened, cell started to adaptations. If adaptation fails, cell goes into irreversible or reversible injury mode. So if it is a reversible injury mode, then it goes into the state of inflammation. So inflammation represent as the five signs. When it goes into irreversible stages, then it goes into chronic inflammation, it goes into degeneration, it goes into destruction, it goes into necrosis, it goes into apoptosis. So this is what the whole things is explained. So whole in disease and explain their causation, mechanism of their productions and their nature. On the other hand, the systemic pathology. So systemic pathology deals with the disease affecting the specific organ and system of the body. So we all know the general pathology that inflammation having this sign. So if it is goes into system, particular system, then the inflammation happen particular system in this way. Notwithstanding the distinctions, systemic pathology is essentially the applications of the principle of the general pathology to the special situations. So if this is the case, then why is the general pathology put on the back burner? So we have to ask questions. Okay, so pathology also tells that the general pathology is most important. So everywhere the cell injuries start with the inflammations and everything. So in homeopathy, we took the concept of generals more than the particulars. As we evolve, we narrow down our range of selection of the remedy with the particular. It is our evolutions of the homeopathy. The seven, the concept of suppressions. According to modern medicine, only some conditions like a rheumatic fever move from the sore throat stage to the joint and finally affect the heart. So this is what they have made that this is the streptococcal infection of the throat goes into rheumatic fever and that rheumatic fever affecting the heart and the joints and everything. So they understand that this is the kind of suppressions. In another history, that the history of eczema is a significant in cases of asthma, and mumps is known to have orchitis as a complication. So they know the concept of suppression. Otherwise, they coolly shrug their shoulder when they consider one system aloof from the rest of the system. इसका इसके साथ कोई connection नहीं है. They consider that. But it is not like that. Every cell is a community and having the connections of each and every cells. So modern medicine in general will say if we treat one condition, how does it affect any other system? There is no connections. So here I would like to draw your attention to embryology book Bhatnagar, which says that the development of embryo into an adult human is an autogenous process. You all know that from single cell it developed to the multi-trillion cells of the human body, where the single cell become 2, 4, 8 to 6,000 billion cells so held together that it is impossible to say where one ends and the next begins. Okay, the most ordinary cells in the anal canal has an uninterrupted cells to the cell ambiguity with the neurons in the cerebrum or cerebellum. So हम बोलते हैं कि इसका इसके साथ कोई connection नहीं है, but it is all are connected. This is the remarkable organizational beauty of the human body. Each single cell is by itself an independent, isolated entity, but taken as a whole with all other cells, it cannot be demarcated by any dividing line. So this is what very important understanding. Then how do we say the one system is aloof from the other? So this is we have to understand the concept of separations and as a whole. What homeopathy says about the individualization. So individualizations and need to take into considering the most important point in the history of the patient. So beside aphorism number 83, homeopathy tells about Hahnemann's talks of individualizing examinations of the each cases in. And in aphorism number 5, he says the most significant point of the whole history of the chronic disease to enable him to discover its fundamental cause. In this investigation, the ascertainable physical constitution of the patient first, especially when the disease is chronic. Second, his moral. Third, his intellectual character. Fourth, his occupations, his mode of living and habit. his social and domestic relationship, his age, sexual function, etc. are to be taken into consideration as this signifies the individual itself. Whereas modern medicine says that embryology text says that embryology has no explanation for unfailing uniqueness of each individual. So there is no explanations. If meeting and in between, we will rejoin again and we will continue these meetings. Okay. The embryology has no explanation for unfailing uniqueness of the each individual. Face and fingerprint, pattern of the sulci and gyri on the brain or the vein in the dorsum of the hand, if basically same process work to shape all the human being, they should all look alike, but they never are. अगर हमें पता है कि अगर कास्कार्ड है एक फॉर्मेट बनाया हुआ है कि ह्यूमन फ्रेम इज लाइक देन ऑल ह्यूमंस आर द सेम बट इट इज नॉट लाइक द सेम बट दे नेवर आर more forces are at work in shaping each embryo than can be described. This is what Bhatnagar embryology says. And what are these different forces responsible for individualization? They are called as genes. If you allow me to quote from the Harrison's textbook of medicine from the chapter of genetic, the book says, more than one-fifth of the protein, hence any genes, in each human being exists in the form that differ from the one present in the majority of the populations. This remarkable genetic variability or polymorphism among normal people account for much of the normal variations in the body trait such as height, intelligence and blood pressure. This genetic difference also determined the ability of the each individual to meet environmental challenges including those that produce disease. So this is more than one-fifth of the protein in each human being exists in the form of different and that represent the whole. So all human disease can be considered to result from an interaction between an individual's unique genetic makeup and the environment. So we all know that our constitutions has exposed to the environment and constitution adapt according to the environment. So this is what same thing written in the Harrison's book. Now, after the Human Genome Project, the authority of the modern medicines have started saying that every individual might require a different medicine. The same thing what Master Hahnemann has said that every individual is a different and it require a different remedy for the different person. Even the ailment or disease remain same. Homeopathic medicine's action is not known. Another reason that is extended to call homeopathy as unscientific is that the actions of medicine is not known, how they act and where they effect. This is one part of the debate where the homeopath and not the allopath are at fault. We, I think, have not been able to convince ourselves that homeopathic medicines have definite line of actions. If we read a book like of Harrington's Physiological MEDICA, like Hughes and William Burt, how our medicines act, where they act, and what they do inside the human body. For example, Gross in his Comparative Materia Medica writes under Apis that the suppuration do not occur. This explained by E.F. Harrington as production of the pus, demand and inflammations of the parenchyma. Apis attack only the surfaces, hence it seldom form the pus. So this is what very precise it was written. In contrast, belladonna attack the parenchyma and hence under it we find a tonsil bright red, swollen, threatening suppurations, while under Apis it is written tonsils bright red and erysipelatous. But mind you, this has to be associated with the individualizing features of the case, unlike some homeopaths who just take into consideration only the materia medica part of our book and the selective paragraph which suits them and bring a bad name of homeopathy. This is what Sir has thought and understood. The total is the must. Even in condition like the cardiovascular accident, we see that the remedy like a conium, bothrops, arnica have a definite symptomatology, like the same like a disease. For example, under arnica, it was given to understand arnica properly as a whole, you must know that it affects the blood vessel. So it was given in the Allen Skinod and Farrington clinical materia medica. This should make it amply clear to all of us that homeopathic medicine have a definite sphere, a space, and a depth of action which is sadly or poorly understood by homeopath or us. What Sir says about homeopathy believe that the practice of medicine is an art. In this, Harrison agrees completely with us. In fact, it is with the sentence that in the first chapter start with the practice of medicine is an art. Potentizations, we have the concept of potentization, so we all know that it is entirely the homeopathic in concept, and the brainchild of the Dr. Hahnemann weighs this in every way. So it is what Hahnemann has made this. Now the modern science and the quantum physics understand that the power of medicine is something different than just energy. So we limit our understanding of potentization here because it all has to be taught by Sir with the hypothesis of a quantum medicines or quantum mechanism with the concept of the positron. So for that you all are need to attend SCPH so you can understand in a better way. Minimum doses. So what homeopathy claim that in homeopathy we don't claim to cure disease with our medicine. Again, it was same written in the introductions of the Kant repertory. Kant has mentioned that we are not, our medicine does not cure. Our medicine just stimulate the vital principle and vital principle itself cure. So what Sir has mentioned, we just stimulate the immune system to react and cure itself. What modern medicine says to treat disease with the physiological doses in order to overcome or suppress the external and internal disease producing or causing agent. So this is what we have to understand. So for that they just suppress like that antibiotics or bacteria that be suppressed. So antibacterial remedy has a two type of effect. One is called as a bactericidal and one is called as a bacteriostatic. So their action can be checked. So this is what they understood like this. To treat the disease with the physiological doses in order to overcome or suppress the external or internal disease producing or causing agent. As there is a basic difference in the concept of tissue system, allopathy and homeopathy, we don't expect to find the concept of minimum dose or that of the potentization in the books of modern science. Okay, because modern science does not understand the dose of minimum dose. They just understand the physiological and the large doses. The concept of the similia similibus curantis, we all know that our whole system is based on this principle. The basic principle of homeopathy arose when the Hahnemann found on that the remedy cure because they have the power to produce or cause that particular result. It was astonished and pleasantly surprised when one of the modern medicine book mentioned through indirectly the similar concept. In one of the books on immunology, what Sir has read that immune system is a one system which help in homeostasis because of its most significant role in a defense system of the body. But this system, which is capable of defending body when disorder, it also capable of producing disease, which are known as to us as autoimmune disease. So this is what very beautifully same similar concept that the medicine which produce the disease, the same medicine will cure the disease, and again our system also like the same. Isn't this strikingly similar? We need to gather courage to stand up and fight for this beautiful system of medicine which given us our bread and butter. This article has no intentions whatsoever of confrontations or increasing the friction between the physicians of these two systems. But we should be in a position to explain when inquire about, fight when confronted, but in a scientific way. For that, the Infighting should stop and we should unite. So this is what the sirs request, that in an internal fight with the homeopath has to be stopped and we have to unite. Another thing that is badly required is knowledge. So we have to gather the knowledge. A very sound and a solid base of knowledge is the one thing that can change everything. This is the aim towards which the predictive homeopathy is working, and as Dr. Vijayakar says, to try and correct all that is wrong in the field of homeopathy. Ours is a complete science, and we should be aware of the different allied sciences and their significance in our daily practice. With this knowledge alone, we will be able to fulfill our full potentials. So, what Sir has proposed that towards the unity in homeopathy. For more understanding, I request all of you to read this book, and you can take a screenshot of this book so you can get that where we have to understand. Okay, now we are starting with the another chapter. So this is a main important chapter in our entire practice of homeopathy, the makeup of the man. So today we will complete this chapter, makeup of the man. We in a homeopathy, the true healing science, treat the man in disease and not the disease in man. We know as usual. As we deal with the highest organism on the earth, the man and his precious belonging, the life, it is very essential to understand this man, human being. In order to understand this man, we must look into very makeup and the build-up of the man. We already we have learned the concept of GCS, but we have to understand man from the core. So journey of the life begins with the fertilization of the single cell ovum. From single cell fertilized ovum, it gets evolved to the 100 trillion cells and the thousands of the control system to maintain it in a health or the homeostasis. This fertilized ovum is encoded with the genes, all the future structure, body and the character, the mind. Every one of us that genes control hereby hereditary from the parents to the children. But very few people know or realize that the same genes also control the day-to-day functions and reproductions of the cell. So what Guyton physiology says, if there is any central theme of life, it is the gene and the DNA system. Now let us understand the functioning of the gene DNA system. Why we correlate more with the genes and DNA? Because we have to understand the man as a whole, how it contribute to arrive at the simillimum, to understand the miasm and the change of the constitutions in acute disease, and to study a remedy relationship. So this is what the whole concept of this simillimum, miasm, change of constitution in acute disease, and the study of the remedy relationship is based on the concept of genes and DNA. We all know the cell wall, nucleus, and the cytoplasm. The gene DNA are located in the nucleus of the cells, and there are about 1 lakh different genes in each cell. The genes control the cell functions by determining what protein will be synthesized within the cell. That is what structure, what enzyme, and what type of the chemical can be made. Each gene's DNA automatically control and formations of the RNA. This RNA then spread throughout the cell to control the formation of the specific protein. The two type of the proteins are formed. Some of the proteins synthesized are the structural and major of the protein are enzymatic. So we all know the enzymatic proteins, the phosphorylation process, the Krebs cycle process, and every cycles which is you learn in the physiology. This is based on the understanding of the protein. Our genes or the genetic code is inherited and acquired character. So protein synthesis by the DNA in each cell is expressed in a structure like a tissue, organ system, and our attitude, behavior, intellect, will, emotions, energy, and the speed. Physical, mental, and general makeup of the every individual arises from the genetic map or genome. If we understood how to decode this man, we will be adding science to our healing art. So, what is genes? Gene is making the RNA formations. RNA gives rise to protein formation. The protein has a two different, the structural protein and enzymatic protein. The structural protein gives rise to a solid structures and cell structure, whereas enzymatic protein gives rise to humoral or a liquid protein. This cell protein gives rise to a constitutions or a characters. As shown earlier, the structural or the solid protein give rise to structure of the man. For example, short, tall, sharp, ugly, delicate, dark, color of the eyes, color and textures of the hair, shape of the face and nose. This also expresses miasm of the man. If it is looking ugly, it is a syphilitic. If it is rounded features and stout, it is a psychotic. If it is a delicate, sharp feature, it is soric in nature. The look or the structure of the person, tall and thin, thus tubercular constitutions. The long bone, we have tuberculinum, calcarea, for sulfur, phosphorus. We have a short constitutions like kali, baryta, natrum. Obese constitutions like lyco, calcarea, ammon, carb. Stout constitutions like aconite, sepia, bryonia, causticum. So all has written in our materia medica, but we have to look into consideration. The skin color fair, so we have natrum phos, phosphorus, mercury, graphite, pulsatilla, whereas a dark skin, nux vomica, sepia, acid nitric, or causticum. Type of the hair, we have a curly, fine, blonde, dark. All suggestions suggest the type of constitutions, the color of the eyes, facial features, the postures, and stoop shoulders. So all are the expression of the basic unit of the cells called as a gene. It is a structural protein. Other protein, which we call as the humoral or the liquid protein, circulate through the blood and they carry out different biochemical reactions in the blood like oxidations, reductions, acid-base balance, controls of the sugar, maintaining blood pressure, hydrations, electrolyte imbalance, aminations, phosphorylations, Krebs cycles, etc., etc., etc. All are governed by this humoral protein. So basic cell is the protein. All these are the balance in a harmonious automatic way to maintain the homeostasis in the body. So another features of the humoral or enzymic protein is expressed in desire and aversion, so tolerance to the environmental factor like the sun, wind, moon phases, thermals, susceptibility. So we will learn this in the later chapter, applied physiology. What is the importance of the thermal? What is the importance of the thirst? It was given in this book only. So susceptibility and reaction to the climate, sunlight, water regulation, thirst, increase or decrease. This protein also controls the temperament of the man through his brain called as a limbic system. We all know the neurochemicals like adrenaline, serotonin, epinephrine, dopamine, which gives rise to emotions like anger, fright from adrenaline, sadness from serotonin, sadness from epinephrine, joy and perceptions changes like delusion from the dopamine. Our emotions are ultimately controlled by the genetic makeup. The tolerance or the reaction to the rudeness, grief, criticism, insult, mental stress, and other environmental stress will determine what kind of constitutions we are dealing with. So another crucial point to understand the type of constitutions of the patient. Now we have understood that the protein synthesis by the genes gives basic character of the persons, the non-disease character or innate nature of the persons, which we have learned in understanding of GCS. Express as example the mild, timid, courageous, religious, deceitful, miser, squanderer, slow, fast, dull, intelligent, slow, strong will, weak will, etc. So Harrison says that again, the same Harrison said that more than one-fifth of the total protein, and hence the gene, in each human being exists in the form that different from one present in the majority of the population. So this one-fifth genes gives rise to individualization. This remarkable genetic variability or polymorphism amongst the normal people account for the normal variations in the body trait such as the height, structure, intelligence, mind, and the blood pressure physical. So this is what again the word is giving is the clue. This genetic difference also determine the ability of the each individual to meet the environmental challenges, including those that produce disease. All human disease can be considered to result from an interaction between the individual unique genetic makeup and the environment. That is why we have to understand the man in disease, because we are not considering a simple symptomatology, we are considering the outward reflections of that genetic process. So, to understand a basic man, we must observe patient from his structure, his behavior, and his tolerance to the environmental stresses, which we call as a physical tolerance or a mental tolerance. This shows that genetically every individual is different individual, and that is why Hahnemann mentioned that the concept of individualizations. What Samuel Hahnemann was the first in the field of science to say that every individual is different. So this is what we all know, the concept of individualizations. And every person in this world is born with the sora, which remains dormant. It is the future environment in which a sora is exposed to will exhibit or manifest symptoms according to the person's inherited tendency. So today's modern science says that the same thing that what Hahnemann said 200 years ago. The theory and belief of our master Hahnemann proved now in a scientific way. We need to correlate our entire homeopathic mainstay in such a similar manner to make the homeopathy more precise and scientific in the present and the future era. As said earlier, a gene not only control the heredity, but the same gene also control the day-to-day functions and the reproductions of the cells. The gene control day-to-day activity, that is, they organize the normal mechanism of the cell. In addition to this, the same genes also control the growth or the reproductions of the cells, and finally the degradations or destructions of the cell. So cell has three basic functions as we all know: the growth and reproduction, which we termed as psychosis, the organizations or a day-to-day function which we termed as the sora, and the degenerations or destruction which we termed as a syphilis. This is like a god having three functions of the nature: generator, organizers, and the destroyer. Therefore, as described by Master Hahnemann, there can only be three miasm which we called as god, namely the sora, psychosis, and syphilis, because what master has telling us, our science is the nature science and it follows all the nature's law. So nature has the same rules as all. So it represents the sora, psychosis, and syphilis in the form of god related to the human life and disease. No pseudo false or fancy miasms are possible. This is what Vijayakar sir is telling us. We at the predictive homeopathy hope to rectify all that is wrong with the homeopathy plan. When we take a history, we note down all events in detail regarding patient status in the health, disease, and relevant history of his family, past history, etc., to make a full and rounded case. However, unfortunately, the artistic part has been overriding the scientific part. Therefore, in a given single case, if we ask 10 different homeopaths, nearly all of them will arrive at a different remedy altogether, as we all have experienced this. As every homeopath has their own derived artistic approach and explanations for their conclusions of arriving at constitutional medicines. Nevertheless, we had given them only one patient. Someone is prescribing on the pathology or organic changes, another in the considering only mental of the case by explaining that the mind is the base of man. Another says, I prefer to take PQRS of the case, this form totality. It is of no use of taking a big jargons of syndrome from the mind and the particular of the body. Some will view it from the temperament alone. According to Dr. Hahnemann, every individual is different individual, but here we see that in one individual there are 10 different individuals. Oh, so much confusion, isn't it? Now, which is correct or the only constitutional remedy which is perfectly matching one as per homeopathic law? All the above mentioned approaches are unhomeopathic. They furnish partial totality as they do not furnish the morbid totality which characterize the patient. They may remove the symptoms and may not restore the health to the patients. So we have to understand we must have some method which is proved and tested and the scientific method by following which all arrived at only one constitutional medicine for one individual. So this is very important that uniqueness has to be maintained. So, what predictive homeopathy has applied the latest science about the final truth of living being the gene, the code to understand the mind and body in homeopathic way. This open up a new window to understand and consider the sick man. The structure of the hair, color of the eye, shape of the nose, face, and the body as a whole to read face of every individual and body language in disease and even health. Certain way to pick up symptoms that characterize the patients. A new, better, and more scientific way to arrive at simillimum, and as a result, prescribing is made easy. Why we are learning this? Because we are learning because we are making ourselves to understand homeopathy in an easy way. Body language and expressions on the face is a true reflections of the interior of the man. The man is prior to the organ. This gives us information regarding will and intellect of the man. Kant says the will is expressed on in the face. Its result in unimplanted on the countenance. The combination of these two, the will and the understanding, constitute the man. They have stamp on their face. The countenance is expressive of the heart. So face gives you everything. Again, to get the morbid totality in each cases, we should consider the structure, will, intellect, emotions, innate nature, reaction to the environmental stress, either a physical or a mental, energy of the patients or the speed of the patient's working and in the disease and the physical general and the trait, miasm of the patient. All these are ultimately the expression of the man's genetic code. So everything which is reflected outward, it is expressions of the vital force which we have learned in the organon, but it is expressions of the genetic code. So morbid totality based on this new scientific concept lead to selections of the correct simillimum. With this approach to any given cell case, all homeopaths are likely to arrive at one simillimum. Finally, curing the patient will remove the symptoms and restore the health of the patient. Now we have to understand the concept of the genes, how genes is expressed and not expressed, okay, repressed. So at any given point of time, only few genes out of 1 lakh DNA are active, which we called as de-repressed genes or expressive genes or active genes. They express the real man, the totality, which we consider as expressions of these de-repressed genes. The inactive or repressed genes may become active in a severe grief, insult, wounded pride or ego, or suppress anger, vaccinations, use of antibiotic, and environmental stress, etc. The cause of ailment. So, in same persons, now you get a different or a changed constitution, but by and large, this is likely to be remedy in relation to of the former. Very interesting things to understand why our remedy have complementary, compatible, antidotal, or followed by the relationship. When we understand a basic constitutions, our tasks become very easy to deal with in acute, severe ailment and even useful in your emergency. For example, pulsatilla constitutions may come up in acute disease resembling silica, gelsemium, calcarea, chamomilla, etc. A child who is treated with the chamomilla may require a pulsatilla when grown up and so on. This is so because homeopathy is a complete science and if understood well, it is purely mathematics. Homeopathy is easy. So here in the figure we have to understand that this is the mildness and the gene which is called as the de-repressed genes which is active genes. The mildness is there, the obesity is there, okay, the weeping is there, the desire consolation is there, a thirstless is there. This represent the pulsatilla. But when something, the inactive genes, a black dot represent the inactive genes. When it is active because of certain trauma or environmental stress or a cause, it can goes into inactive genes goes into activity and repress in a different form. So, for example, we know the pulsatilla, mild, yielding, gentles, and everything, but it was in the genetic code. But when it is repressed, another trauma has happened. So you find that pulsatilla can be a very, very courageous remedy. You can go to the repertory and then, so this is what, when the traumatization happens, the mild yielding girl becomes so much so courage, and that means it is an expression of the inactive genes, it is repressed. Or sometimes the whole the constitution changed to the different constitutions, or a change disposition, which we called as, initially it was so mild and now becomes so much so irritable like chamomilla. So that chamomilla is a state of inactive genes become active. So this is what we the concept of remedy relationship what sir has mentioned in this. So very few people have realized that the simillimum act at a genetic level. It act beyond organs. It is a Dr. Vijayakar, the founder of and the leader of predictive homeopathy, has coined the new word genetic constitutional simillimum to denote the whole above mentioned theory. To me, Dr. Vijayakar is the first in the field of homeopathy who has applied the science of the human body to make homeopathy more precise and scientific. So, we will conclude our learning today, and hope you all understood that why we have to consider the man as a whole, because this is the expressions of the genetic in the form of either a structure or in the form of either a humoral protein, and that guide us man as a whole. And for that we have understood the GCS, genetic concept. So in that genetic concept we have to deal with this phenomenon, that this phenomenon, we have to understand this. We have to consider the will, the structure, the emotions, the innate nature, the reaction to environmental stress, either mental and the physical, which we called as the sensitivity and the reactions, the energy or the speed of the patient in either a disease and physical generals, thermal thirst, desire, aversions, stool, urine, routine, and discharges, and the trait of the patients. All these are ultimately the expressions of the man. So this is what we have understood in the genetic constitutional similitude. So hope you all get the basic. This was the theory, but if we know the theory, we can apply this theory into our practice. That is why I purposefully took this book earlier than the Mayasam book, because once you understand this book perfectly, then the understanding of Mayasam is easy in the futuristic lecture. That's why I put purposefully this book in between. So hope you all understood in a well manner. And if you have any questions or query, you can ask in the chat box. We will have a 3-4 minutes left, so we have a discussion for 3-4 minutes. Hope all enjoy the morning sessions learning, and your feedbacks, your reviews, and your suggestions are welcome. So I request all of you, if you have any feedbacks or suggestions, then you can have a message directly to me, okay, or in a group. So we can improve our readings and the learning so that we can make it possible for all of you. Okay, thank you for all your loves and your dedications and your enthusiasm to learn homeopathy in the morning at 6 o'clock. So I'm highly thankful to all of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Your inputs and suggestions are welcome. If you want something have to improve so we can make it in our upcoming sessions. Thank you. So we conclude our meeting today here. Thank you all. Thank you so much.